When I got laid off, I had a therapy session the next week. In that session, I said something I had been afraid to admit for a long time. I didn't want to go back to working full time for someone else. I really want to move my business forward. I decided to share a clip of that moment on LinkedIn and YouTube. It felt like a huge risk. I was concerned that people would think it would be performative, what it seemed like I was just trying to gain sympathy. But what ended up happening was that being open about my struggles helped build traction for what I'm building and created connections that I didn't expect. I know a lot of people think moments like this shouldn't be shared publicly, but here's the thing: vulnerability is powerful. It's not about oversharing or sympathy. It's just about showing up authentically, even when it's really hard to. If you ever wondered or worried about how vulnerability fits into business, then I think this is for you.
You're listening to Healing in Hindsight, your no BS guide to unadulterated wellness. It feels like we're all struggling to balance wellness, identity, and purpose without losing ourselves, doesn't it? It's okay. You're not alone. I'm Taylor Danielle, and as someone who manages multiple disabilities, is trying to leave the corporate grind and striving to create a life on my terms, I'm just here to help you embrace your path and redefine success in a way that works for you. If that sounds like your vibe, join me for conversations and insights to remind you your journey is yours, exactly as it should be.
Today, I'm going to be exploring how vulnerability can actually be a strength and why it's worth the risk. Please note it's a risk that I am currently taking and continue to take. The first thing that I've thought about and have really been trying to understand is why vulnerability is seen as a weakness, especially in business. What I really came to realize is that corporate culture historically has valued toughness and lack of emotion or emotionlessness, if that's even a word. Basically, just all of these practices rooted in cutthroat business has been a major thing in our history. On top of that, male dominated leadership has perpetuated the idea that showing emotion made you weak or an easy target. Men, but unfortunately, the patriarchy has had a lot to do with the way that emotions are handled in business. A lot of times, it is in those male dominated spaces that vulnerability is seen as a weakness and as a way to exploit somebody instead of as a way to gain traction, compassion, and connection in business. So the corporate world wasn't built with vulnerability in mind. It was built on competition, where emotions are seen as a liability, but times are shifting. And we're starting to see that emotions have a place in creating healthier and more human work environments. That's the part that makes it really powerful is we're starting to meet people where they're at instead of trying to force them into this box to fit an idea or an ideal that we think should exist when it comes to business. Although, yes, there is some separation in business, it's still being ran by humans. If we take the humanity out of business, if we take the humanity out of everything that we do, we end up in a lot of these toxic spaces because we're not being considerate of the actual people involved. That's the piece that made me sit back and start to lean into the fact that maybe there is room for being raw and messy and about how I'm feeling and recording even when I'm not feeling the best. I felt like I had to look, be, and sound a certain way before I could even turn on the camera and press record. That's not the case. I felt the same when it came to trying to build my business, being a content creator. A lot of people don't take you seriously because it's just, oh, you just sit there and shoot videos and listen to yourself talk. That's not it at all. I'm really trying to build a community in a space where people don't have to hide as much. There's still some stuff that you should keep to yourself. I do feel like there are some moments and things that should always remain private, but it doesn't mean that you can't be vulnerable and share in a way that's meaningful and authentic and doesn't seem like you're just doing it for clicks. To me, that's what makes vulnerability really powerful. It reminds us that we're all human. We all feel the same things at some point. So this can lead to stronger support systems and more trust in the workplace or in business partnerships, or even if you're like me and you're a solopreneur, like with your community. Now, there's still definitely risks and rewards when it comes to vulnerability. These are all things that we have to think through and work through as we're navigating this space. In this space, even though there's plenty of people that are doing it in terms of working for themselves, building their own businesses, things like that, it is still very new. It is still very uncharted. Even though we've seen plenty of people do it, it's just not the same path for everybody. I think that's something in walking this path that I've had to constantly remind myself of is that my path is not the same as everyone else's. Can I take certain steps? Can I match energies? Can I do some of the same actions that I've seen other people do, mentors, friends, people that I look up to, things like that? Sure. But it's still a singular path. It might run parallel to some people. It might look the same as other people, but it's just simply not the same. That's the part of being more open and sharing more that I feel makes it worth it. As a woman, being vulnerable is often seen as being too sensitive. So you see a lot of women in the online space, in the wellness space, who are thriving in their self made businesses. But then you also see a lot of people hit walls, burn out, and even have scandals. I get so baffled when I see people that have taken advantage of the fact that sharing your emotion connects people and gets them to trust you. So you come into this really tight balance that you have to keep because now sharing your messy sides doesn't instantly mean that people are going to trust you or want to work with you. You have to build that trust and work hard to ensure that people don't feel taken advantage of just because you're shedding a tear or sharing very private information that doesn't equate to immediate trust. But it does allow a conversation to start. It does open a door for that to build. I think that's the main thing I'm trying my best to operate in when it comes to being more open about things going on with me. It's a thing I've wrestled with because vulnerability can lead to being overlooked or underestimated in high pressure situations. I've had moments where being vulnerable meant people assumed I couldn't handle the pressure. I've been told, we're concerned that you can't have hard conversations. And that's frustrating, but it's also taught me when and how to stand firm in my truth. I think that's the piece of this when it comes to being a creator and trying to build a business as a creator. That fine balance is me being vulnerable does not mean that I'm weak, and it does not mean that I can't handle what's going on. I can, but understand that I'm still a human. I'm still a person and I have feelings, family, friends, relationships, and things that I have to balance, as well as just existing myself. So to choose a path of how I would like to earn my livelihood by sharing aspects of myself that I normally wouldn't have, especially as a millennial. Like, I've come from an age where you only got to see very curated aspects of someone's life because the internet wasn't as open and available as it is now. You had to pay for advertisements. You had to, pay for television spots, and you had to use other means of communication to access people in order to get them to see and understand pieces of you. You could really work to curate a persona. Now it's, I could put a camera on 24/7. Sometimes I feel like reality TV kind of took the wind out of vulnerabilities because you start to see the cracks and flaws in people and we immediately tear it down instead of realizing that we should appreciate the things that creators put together and curate, but also that they're human. We shouldn't put people on pedestals in a way that takes away that humanity. I feel like there are parts of sharing myself online that scare me because I don't want to be seen as inauthentic. I don't want to be seen as somebody who is doing it just because I want the attention, because that's not it. It's obvious that choosing to do an online business nowadays requires you to do stuff to get people's attention. The way you get people's attention is measured a lot of times outside of the obvious things of, okay, what's the product or experience that you're providing people? That makes me want to stay. That makes me want to engage. That makes me want to spend my money. But it's difficult to find the balance. I don't necessarily want to be known for something scandalous because you see that people blow up online simply because they're causing friction. I see it all the time on TikTok or Instagram where it's like, don't go to their page, don't leave mean comments and stuff like that. Don't do all this stuff because you're still adding to their numbers. I always have this small fear of I'm going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or someone's going to take something out of context. And I'm going to get this flood of engagement, but it's not going to be the type of engagement that I'm looking for. How do I prepare for that? Making sure that I'm standing firm in my truth and how I'm operating and doing things and sharing things is important because I have to remember that when you're sharing aspects of yourself, somebody somewhere is going to misunderstand, assume the worst, or take what you said and blow it out of proportion or out of context. Somebody somewhere is going to project what they think you should say and do onto you, even when you're being very plain and clear about what you're doing and what you're saying. It can definitely be a double edged sword because here I am bearing my soul. Here I am sharing what's really going on with me. Here I am sharing this private moment that's really hard. And it's always difficult to think through, should I turn on the camera? Should I not turn on the camera? Should I record this? Should I not record this? A lot of times when I record stuff, I don't always share it. I have a recording of a pretty bad breakdown. It's not even the breakdown itself. It's the aftermath. It's me sitting in reflection and then breaking down all over again. I chose to not share it because I was in the process of just filming a YouTube video, but then I realized that this is something I don't think I need to share. I think it was just for me. There's a aspect of documenting that you want to be able to look back on. I think that's the part that people get conflicted about. I want to document this because I want to remember this moment. I want to remember what this felt like. I want to look back and see myself once I've gotten over this and I've gotten through my next challenge or hurdle and I made it to these milestones. I want to look back and realize that I did that. That's the part that makes being vulnerable, especially in a business sense, seem worth it. There are rewards in vulnerability. For example, in my past role as a leader and trainer, being vulnerable helped build trust with my team. It showed them that I wasn't perfect, but I cared. That kind of honesty creates connections that go beyond work. Sharing these private, intense moments on social media has shown potential collaborators and clients that I'm relatable and that can attract the right people. So it all boils down to how do you decide what to share? That's been the thing that I've been struggling with and why I took such a long break. I was very niched into this one small lane, and it was only a small part that impacted all aspects of me. Let's be real, diabetes touches everything in my life, but it wasn't the only thing of my life. So when I was deciding to do a brand refresh and pivot a little bit, I had to really think about how I decide what to share. I decided that I should focus on what's specific to me. If it involves someone else's story or details, then I either ask permission, make the information anonymous, or don't share it at all. Because respecting others' boundaries is just as important as sharing your own truth. So that's when I decided that all I can do is share my story and my aspects of what I'm doing and hope that somebody gets it. Sure, there'll be points where we need to clarify, adjust, but I'm choosing that the best way for me to navigate my business, the best way for me to feel good about what I'm building for myself, because I don't want to continue working for others, that I need to be open and honest about how I'm moving through it. Now, to be clear, it's not that I don't like working for other people. It's not that working for another person is bad. So if you're somebody who's, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, I don't want to run my own business, that's a lot of work. I know plenty of people who do that. That's perfectly fine. For me, it's just been like, I just couldn't stop dreaming about the thing that I started. Even now, I'm working part time as a contractor and I enjoy it. I would be lying if there wasn't a part of me that doesn't consider going full time. It's not to say that I'll never work full time for someone again. When I got laid off, I knew these were the ending days of that for me. It doesn't mean that I won't do what I have to ensure my family is taken care of. Bills got to be paid. Let's be real. Content creation is not an overnight success. A lot of people buy into that because they've seen a lot of people sell or do a lot of clickbaity things that gets people to churn and burn fast. I think that's the aspect people don't know. You might see these things blow up, but it's a lot of people buying into something, but they're not lasting. They're not staying. They're not doing things that retain that level of income. It's a quick injection, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes that's what you need, but it doesn't always, even though I've been on and off at this for 4 years, it's because I'm trying to build something that's going to last. So, in that same vein of trying to build something that's last and using vulnerability as my way of building those connections and community and business collaborations, I feel like it also fosters encouraging vulnerability in others. I think some of the things, if I had to speak to that for other people, is just asking yourself, what's the worst you could lose by being a little more open? People want to connect with real people, especially if you're just starting out or if you're starting and stopping like me, right? If you're going through life and you're having to press pause because, hey, right now I'm not making stable income. So I need to go do a part time job or I need to go do this or that, whatever I can to make ends meet. That's okay. You don't have to share your deepest secrets. You can start small and share something meaningful. I chose to share a peek behind the curtain of my therapy session. It wasn't the full session, but I talked about being laid off and it was tough. Even though it wasn't my first time, it just came at the worst time. I was supposed to be planning a wedding that we've had to put on pause until we can get back on our feet. We're trying to move. We're trying to elevate our standard of living. We're trying to create a better work-life balance. But the job market that it is right now, it's really difficult. So to me, it just felt like there's really no perfect time to do this. But I don't want to try to fake that everything's going good either, because it's not. That's okay. That's just life. So all of this kind of leads to this thought: how can I foster vulnerability? How can I show that it's okay to not be okay, but still push forward in the goals and things you have? The biggest thing for me that I've always tried to live by, I'm not the best at it, I'll be honest, but I try my best. That's leading by example and staying open to other perspectives. When you show that you're willing to be vulnerable, you make it easier for others to feel safe and do the same. Vulnerability doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Start small. If you are working in an office environment or for another company, start with your immediate team. Or maybe you're like myself and you're trying to build your own business, but you've started networking, so you could do so in smaller business groups. Any small amount of openness can have a big impact. Any effort to extend a hand of, hey, I get it because I'm dealing with this too, can really help foster deeper relationships. That's what I'm pushing myself to do. Being vulnerable isn't weak. It's a strength in its rawest form. It reminds me of Brene Brown's books, where she leans into Theodore Roosevelt's Man in the Arena speech. I really love it because this aspect of this speech, it says so much in such a powerful way. I do my best to remind myself of this. In fact, I need to get something to hang where it's visible to me all the time, because I feel like it truly depicts how to be open and vulnerable as a leader, as a business person, as an everyday person. Ways we can connect and build trust, but still be truly ourselves. I want to share a piece of this because I often forget it and I need to put it somewhere where I can read it. My favorite part of the speech is, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong the man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. Being vulnerable is daring greatly. It's choosing to show up even when it feels risky. And that's where real strength lies. Here's the truth. You are not alone. The more people I connect with, the more I realize that we're all fighting similar battles. So the next time that you're afraid to show vulnerability, remind yourself that your openness might be exactly what someone else needs to see to feel less alone. I want to leave you with the challenge. Share one vulnerable thing with someone this week, whether it's a colleague, a friend, or even your audience if you're a creator like myself. And notice how it shifts the connection. Vulnerability has the power to build trust and create deeper understanding, but it starts with you taking that first step. After you've done it, share your experience with me. Screenshot this episode, tag at Healing in Hindsight, and use the hashtag #VulnerableEntrepreneur to let me know how being open changed something for you. Let's keep the conversation going and show that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness.